TikTok is a treat. Okay? If you take away this treat, people are going to get very mad. If you take away any treats from the American market, they will get mad. They had a good old-fashioned, before people get mad at me, I'm going to use a term that's problematic, Mexican standoff here. Okay? I actually don't even know if that's problematic or not. I'm just, being woke of the day ahead of time. But and the Chinese government, or rather the owners of TikTok, ByteDance, was just like, yeah, no, we're not going to divest, dude. Like, that's crazy. Okay? We're not going to divest. You're delusional. As a matter of fact, I'll take it one step further. We will close down our servers. So 170 million Americans that currently enjoy their treats will no longer be able to have access to their treats. And basically the American government was like, we didn't realize that we didn't have motion like that. Excuse me, you can't do that, actually. So now they have to, pass the buck to the Trump admin. I think it's so funny because if what they're saying is true and China wants to influence Americans with this app, if they don't sell it and it just goes dark, Americans who have used the app are going to be mad at the American state. That would mean China would win either way. Soft power goats. This is so dumb. Yeah. It's just, there is no way to look at this. Like, there is no valid reason for this other than we don't like that a app that is not owned immediately, like not owned directly by an American, but indirectly owned by many Americans, has this level of motion in our market, and also simultaneously has the capacity to change people's minds about certain issues that we want to control the flow of information on. We can't put our thumb on the scales. And I don't like that. What's also crazy, indirectly owned by many Americans, Fire. I mean, it is owned by many Americans. Why do they not have the same attitude towards Twitter? And I'm not talking about Elon Musk, who is obviously South African. I'm talking about the Saudi government. The Saudi government is a major owner of Twitter now. That's who actually bought Twitter. Elon Musk didn't front the entire thing. He went to Saudi Arabia and got their sovereign funds to put up billions of dollars necessary to purchase it. Why do we not have that same issue? Yeah, 60% of its parent company, ByteDance Limited, is owned by global investors. 20% is owned by its co-founders and 20% by its employees, including thousands of Americans. Saudi's second largest investors in Twitter after Musk takeover. Yep. Kingdom Holding Company and the private office of Prince Al-Walid bin Talal will maintain their stake in Twitter after Musk took control over the social media company. Saudi Arabia Kingdom's holding company, KHC, along with the private office of Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, will continue their ownership of Twitter shares valued at $1.89 billion after Elon Musk take over the social media company, making them jointly the second largest investors, according to a statement released by the Saudi prince. Bin Talal, who shared the statement on his Twitter account on Friday and made reference to Musk as the chief twit, stated that the deal was in line with the long-term strategy of KHC. Because China is not an ally, maybe, dog? Brother, I know, that's what I'm saying. That's the point. Reddit is also owned by a Chinese company, Tencent. Why is it not banned too? Because Reddit ultimately is still controlled by Americans. Okay? That's why. So much of, then what don't you understand? Wait, what? Do you think that every single time I ask rhetorical questions, I'm simply asking a real straightforward question because I don't know what the answer to that question is? Or do you think I'm using the rhetorical questions as a tool to further solidify the argument that I'm making? We do too much trade with China. They own, like, Chinese investors own, or I guess if you want to say every Chinese company is technically controlled by the government. Chinese investors and the Chinese government has control over, to a certain degree, every single company. Like so many companies. No, I understand, but that's how it's always worked. Saudis are puppies. Dog, that's what I'm saying. The reason why I brought this up is because it's not about like foreign countries owning or what their internal politics look like. It has everything to do. It has everything to do with this one specific foreign country and us not having any control over the flow of information, not being able to put our thumb on the scale. That's my point.
Out a little bit. But to Brian's point, you know, this ban is only in effect in so long as a foreign adversary owns the back end of TikTok, and it can lift at any time. So as long as there's a deal that's worked out at some point, or the arrangement that TikTok has satisfies the government's concerns, then perhaps it can come back in full force even very quickly. So, you know, a lot can happen in this space, and we've seen the negotiations take off. Donald Trump, of course, has invited the TikTok CEO to be.
When I say fuck me in frustration at work, what I actually mean is have sex with me, 62-year-old coworker. Yes, GILF lives matter.
Front and center at his inauguration on Monday. There's some speculation as to maybe he'll be able to work out some kind of a deal there. But remember, Diane, just 4 years ago, he was the one who signed an executive order banning TikTok. He was the one that wanted it out of the country. He signed a law banning TikTok from all government devices, which remains in force today. If you're a government employee, you can't download TikTok. So, you know, it's Donald Trump's method to use things like this for negotiation tactics. We'll see if he's able to pull something out of his hat. But in the meantime, come Sunday, according to the company, it will go dark.
And I do have some breaking news on that front, Devin. President-elect Trump has just posted on Truth Social that he spoke to President Xi Jinping of China, that the call was a very good one.
My goat, JD Pondon. JD Pondon. JD Pondon, baby. JD Pondon, baby.
One for both China and the USA, he says. And he says it's his expectation that they will solve many problems together and starting immediately.
You already know he's gutting the Treatlerites. You already know. You already know he's killing all of the Adolf Treatler supporters by eviscerating American trade with all of his tariffs. Okay? He wants the suburbs to scream. He wants every single drop shipper to drop dead. Okay? A true third worldist, a true Maoist third worldist, dude. You thought Xiaohongshu was the application. Turns out Xiaohongshu is actually not the red note, but the red book, the little red book that Trump has a copy of. He wasn't reading Mein Kampf. He was reading the little red book. The revolutionary sentiment lives within JD Pondon. He will take out every Treatlerite one by one.
He says we discussed balancing trade, fentanyl, TikTok, and many other subjects. President Xi and I will do everything possible to make the world more peaceful and safe. So it sounds like President-elect Trump has wasted no time trying to address this directly with the Chinese president. Of course, waiting to see what that all means. But what's your impression, Devin, or your reaction, I should say, to how much Trump has spoken about this, especially given, as you point out, he had a very different.
By the way, you misunderstand the Facebook is banned in China argument. That's about reciprocity of trade, market access. Doesn't matter, though, because the government didn't argue that. You're right as to why TikTok got banned, but legally it's no different than the restrictions on foreign ownership of media outlets. Wait, what? No, I'm saying that. What? Am I misunderstanding you? Maybe. I'm saying that I don't care. Like, sure, Facebook should exist in China. I don't give a shit. But also, I'm not Chinese. I have no control over what the Chinese government can say or do. I don't even have control over what the American government says or does. I'm in here in the process of criticizing the American government for the actions that it's taking. Oh, you're saying the government didn't argue trade reciprocity and market access as a reason to ban TikTok. Is that what you're saying? What do you mean, Geld? I don't even think it's necessarily the anti-Israel speech that was popping off on TikTok that is the major reason. I think the anti-Israel speech is the straw that broke the camel's back. Because it's an indication of a much larger problem. Okay? You could point to pro-Luigi sentiment if you want as well. These are the types of things that our corporate overlords are genuinely fearful of. Okay? It's ultimately disruptive to the pre-existing hierarchy when you have loads of younger generations going, yeah, no, I don't actually have a problem with Luigi Mangione, who, allegedly assassinated the CEO of a healthcare company. That is what is terrifying to people who are ultimately holding on to power. Israel just has a lot of Israel and the pro-Israel lobby has a lot of influence in American Congress. So they were able to exert that influence and basically push this across the finish line. Republicans had their menu of cuts leaked to the press. These are all the things that they're considering to pay for Trump's second round of tax cut. Low lights include 10% tariff, lowering corporate tax rate to 15%, ending home mortgage interest deductions, taxing scholarships, pick your poison. Holy moly. Also, the elephant in the room is that TikTok survived years of escalation with China, but a few weeks of moral panic about Palestinian activism pushed the ban through. Israel's in trouble. Really is the activation word that shut off boomers' rational political thought. Congress got so freaked out by the idea of Adolf bin Laden on the Columbia campus that they forgot why they hadn't ever banned an entire social media ecosystem from America before. I think it is yet another indication that America's soft power capabilities are diminishing. And also, American capitalism is kind of, with the private-public partnership and constant cost-cutting, constant corner-cutting, constant profit-seeking, has actually eviscerated the institutional powers of, like, the State Department, the institutional power that the state intelligence apparatus also had. So they just don't have the same motion that they used to in terms of manufacturing consent. They don't have the same motion that they used to, so they're just trying to do this, like, ridiculous thing by taking matters into their own hands and like openly and boldly trying to stop this company at all costs from, like, poisoning the mind of the youth. And it was done in such a silly way, especially because the very nature of TikTok makes everything so publicly visible. It's like, as a platform, as a social media platform, is the most successful. 170 million Americans are on it, right? It's infinitely more successful than Twitter is in terms of, like, getting normies to pay attention to a particular thing. That in and of itself is making the story Much worse for them. If it was something that was like in the margins, like they would have an easier time, in my opinion, banning DJI. They would have an easier time, in my opinion, banning TP-Link, right? Like Chinese companies that they can claim are spying on Americans through these consumer products, right? They could do that. But with TikTok, it's like 170 million Americans use it. And also the very nature of the platform in and of itself is just like, it's a communication tool for a lot of normies. What is this? Hello, Americans here. Does anyone watch him? If you know who this is, what are your thoughts on him? I watch him. He looks good, but too woke, too gay. Love Kaya best. I'm too gay for the Chinese. I gotta mask it up. There's no way that's actually a Chinese person, dude. Are you kidding me? Have you guys seen what has motion in Asian countries? If I looked gayer, I would be considered hotter, I think. If I looked more androgynous, I would be considered sexier. That definitely was from China. The IP was from Anhui, a Chinese province. Oh, really? That's crazy.
Viewpoint in his last administration.
Right, and it's important to keep that context front and center as the new president comes in. And as we talk about the concerns about TikTok, these have been
Have you ever talked to Chinese who actually live there? I've seen lots of tweets without any research, just making me laugh at. Yes, I have talked to Chinese people who live in China. I also unironically have Chinese relatives who work in China.
Front and center for the United States government, Congress, Republicans, Democrats, from the CIA over to the Pentagon, President Biden, President Trump. There's really unanimity that this is a concerning situation, and they have been in negotiations with ByteDance for more than 4 years. So it's not as if this law simply came out of the blue and now all of a sudden the government is going to ban TikTok. They have tried to come up with some sort of a solution for data security, putting Americans in charge of TikTok security on the board, putting some of their data in an American-owned cloud run by Oracle. But at the end of the day, the government has said,
like, for me, I think the reason why I'm still maintaining the position that it's not likely that TikTok is banned, and I might be totally off base on this, is because of a couple things, right? Like, one, too many Americans make money off of TikTok, both on the consumer side, like both on the small business owned and operation side. 7 million small businesses have started on TikTok. And too many institutional investors make money off of TikTok because they're, the corporate investors into ByteDance directly. Okay. There's also an unimaginable amount of money that goes into TikTok in terms of marketing, for example. Like major media companies like UMG and all these other record labels have invested a lot of money and effort into TikTok as well. But on top of that, the American market, the American social contract revolves around treats. Okay? The American social contract is about easily accessible, readily available treats at my disposal at any given moment. And TikTok is a treat. Okay? If you take away this treat, people are going to get very mad. If you take away any treats from the American market, they will get mad, especially once they've grown used to it. Okay? And TikTok is a major treat for 170 million Americans. Think about how Americans responded when they couldn't get a haircut during the 1 month long period of COVID shutdowns. Okay? Think about how Americans responded when they had to be, they were forced to wear a mask in public for like a week and a half. They lost their minds. because everything falls apart if you don't have access to treats. Think about how Americans reacted to inflation. When treats are no longer as readily accessible and as affordable, or are taken away from you, Americans go, what are we doing all this for? I don't have health care, right? My health care is a for-profit and tied to my job that I hate, okay? I sit around in traffic to get there all day, every day. There's no, the roads are filled with potholes. The ISPs are screwing us over. We're not getting good enough service. No bandwidth whatsoever. No technological improvements that are immediately making my life better or easier. I never see any sort of tangible benefit from the technological improvements. Anytime we see any sort of tech improvements, it's actually to improve productivity, which then ends up displacing more parts of the labor force. The world is seemingly on fire or underwater, sometimes at the same time. I don't have anything. The only thing I have is the dollar menu and ease of access to treats. A relatively inexpensive television that I can buy year over year. So when you take that away from Americans, they go, well, what am I doing this for? You took the last thing I had. You can't buy a house. You can't retire. The world is on fire. There's constant war all the time. Everything sucks. Dollar menu gone, bro. I know. That's my point. Dollar menu is gone. That's the point. That's what I'm saying. How do you think Americans responded when they had to pay extra dollars for their eggs or when the dollar menu went away? This is like my first time in 5 years watching you that I disagree. They're literally shutting operations on Sunday. What you mean it won't be banned? So TikTok is shutting down operations on Sunday. How do you think it's going to be saved? I think it's a flex. I don't think they're going to shut down operations, especially considering that Joe Brandon quite literally said they're doing a 90-day extension on the ban already, so that, it's up to Trump to fix it. I used to work for TikTok. We'll see. Do you feel me though? Do you understand where I'm coming from with this, chatters? What is messy is that we hold ByteDance shares. I don't know how that severs cleanly with a U.S. acquisition. Currently working for TikTok, they plan more U.S. hires. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, TikTok themselves said that they're going dark, but they've also simultaneously not engaged in any sort of layoffs whatsoever, as far as I understand, in their American operations. That's odd. Biden is doing a 36-hour extension, as far as I know, not 90 days. No, it's a 90-day extension. It's so funny to think that these guys literally turned around yesterday. Oh, he did? I thought it was 90 days. Am I wrong? Biden didn't sign a 90-day extension. He gave it 36 hours. That's so stupid. I love that this is a self-inflicted wound by the Democratic Party, by the way, that actively pushed for this. Wonderful stuff, Mr. President. Wonderful way to leave office. Just making sure that no one under the age of 35 ever votes for the Democrats ever again. It's so sweet. It's so sick. Where's that tweet with the Chuck Schumer? I'm sure you guys have that Chuck Schumer tweet, no? This is what I was looking for. Thank you. No, not this. There's a video of Chuck Schumer talking about this yesterday as well. Not this. No, the video of Chuck Schumer.
very opposed to TikTok.
What? No, that's not it either. But I mean, this is funny. It was a Ken Klippenstein tweet. Oh, this is the one I was looking for. Here it is. Congress panics, realizing no one's going to buy TikTok before the ban, a problem they created, with Senator Schumer saying it's clear that more time is needed to find an American buyer and not disrupt the lives and livelihoods of millions of Americans, so many influencers who have built up a good network of followers.
Few words about protecting TikTok's future while also protecting America's national security at the same time. It's clear that more time is needed to find an American buyer and not disrupt the lives and livelihoods of millions of Americans.
That's cool, man. What happened? You guys didn't think about that ahead of time? I'm a stupid guy. Even I could see that ahead of time. I warned this. I said this is obviously a major reason as to why it can't be banned. 7 million small businesses. 7 million small businesses, man. $11 billion of revenue generated on TikTok year over year. Are you crazy? Just because ByteDance owns it? Like, it's such a stupid move. It was such an unimaginably stupid freaking move. And ironically enough, it was so stupid that it was initially a Trump move. That's what's also fantastic about this. It's amazing that the TikTok ban was 100% a Trump GOP thing originally, that Dems found some way to completely politically own and then set up Trump to be the heroic savior of a popular platform. Absolute masterclass. Every day that goes on, I am firmly committed to the belief that the Democratic Party, if not intentionally, is operating, maybe unintentionally or intentionally, as the controlled opposition party. It's hilarious. It's hilarious that they're just, their job effectively is to just make the Republican Party look good. The U.S. government, especially the Dems, act against the people and against their own best interest to fulfill the interests of the Israel lobby. I don't think TikTok ban is such an unimaginable outcome despite everything. There are certain things that are more powerful. There are certain interests that are more powerful in in the American collective consciousness than doing the bidding of a couple people with motion and lobbying power. Okay. I think there's a limit to how much the pro-Israel lobby can get away with, like, pushing Congress. You can quietly engage state by state and, make it illegal to protest Israel. You can do that across the board over multiple decades, right? And they have done that. That has happened in 32 states. It is illegal to engage with BDS technically on paper. Okay? But you can't do something like this when you are taking away 170 million Americans' treats from their hands in this most visible, most public way possible. And you can't do it in a way where it literally ruins a ginormous percentage of American small businesses. I think that even if they were to push for this, at the end of the day, there will be severe political repercussions for it. That's how I foresee it.
So many influencers who have built up a good network of followers. That's why last night, Senate Democrats tried to pass a bill that will extend the deadline to give everyone more time to come up with a workable solution. But Senate Republicans blocked our bill, which is stunning because time is running short. We will continue to work to find a responsible solution to keeping TikTok going. Balance. We must end goods and protect against keeping TikTok going, protect American livelihoods, and protect against Chinese Communist Party surveillance. We must and can do all three. I have made my views clear.
There's nothing funnier than, I mean, this is the perfect demonstration of Democratic Party incompetence, by the way. Like, they wrote the bill, they pushed the bill, they signed it into law, and now they're like, we're doing our very best to try and stop this bill that we pushed for and signed into law. Well, why did you write it? Why did you actively push for it? You couldn't foresee this being a major political burden? Oops.
Clear to the current administration. And I will work with the Trump administration and with both parties to keep TikTok alive while protecting our national security.
It's crazy, man. It's so dumb. And here he is back. Like, we must, yesterday, Chuck Schumer hits this line. We must protect TikTok's future. We're also protecting American national security. We're not against TikTok. We're against a Chinese company in cahoots with the CCP owning TikTok. Senate Dems tried to pass a bill to extend the deadline. Republicans blocked it. Yeah, dude. You're doing a great job pushing this on the Republicans when the most public-facing, most popular Republican out there is actively saying he's going to save TikTok. I'm sure the American population will think it's not your fault.
I have been very opposed to TikTok. I was one of the first to expose the Chinese links. And I have urged that TikTok be closed down in America. I have been very...
Well, Biden can veto it? What do you mean? He signed it into law already. What do you mean veto it? He literally signed it. The TikTok ban was already signed into law and then also went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court also then said, yes, the TikTok ban is in motion. It already happened. Here's what Chuck Schumer told President Biden, by the way, in a phone call. That the ban would damage his legacy if it occurred on his watch. Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the Democratic leader, recently told President Biden in a phone call that the ban would damage his legacy if it occurred on his watch, according to two people familiar with the conversation. Mr. Schumer, who said he wanted TikTok to be sold to an American owner instead of being banned, publicly confirmed on Thursday that he had pushed Mr. Biden to extend the deadline. God, we are so stupid. I can't believe how incompetent the Democratic Party is, how stupid the Democratic Party is.